Hello and Konichiwa minasan. It is with tremendous pleasure that I welcome you to our second lecture in the online event series. Minasan, oishi to koru atsumate itadaki domo arigatou gozaimashita. The Indo-Japanese Business Council (IJBC) has decided to host a series of events as a part of celebration of 70th anniversary of diplomatic relationship between India and Japan. To celebrate this momentous year, IJBC is organizing lecture series by veteran speakers, panel discussions about India and Japan views, challenges, fireside chats with Chef Ali, where we will be able to listen inspiring interviews, and of course, not but the least, most awaited event, Konichiwa Pune 2022. The supported by Embassy of Japan, Delhi, and Council General of Japan in Mumbai, Government of India, India-Japan Laboratories, and Keio University. We hope to work together to forge a vibrant India-Japan relationship for future generations. For more details to watch our prior sessions, do visit our website www.ijbc.org. I request you all to please keep your mic off. Thank you. Now let me welcome to our guest, Dr. Rabinder Malik, who truly has set a benchmark of multi-hyphenated achievements. Introducing more about him, Dr. Malik has enjoyed a 40-year-long distinguished career with the United Nations Organization, 20 years with the WHO, World Health Organization, and United Nations Development Program in India and Indonesia, and 20 years with United Nations University in Tokyo, Japan. He has received award for long meritorious service from the United Nations University and from the Secretary General of United Nations. Since retirement from the United Nations University in Tokyo, Dr. Malik has been teaching courses on international relations at a number of Japanese and American universities. He taught a course on global issues and role of United Nations at the prestigious Keio University, Tokyo, for a year of period of 10 years. Dr. US-based IES Study Abroad program, which sends American university students to Japan to undertake studies about Japanese language and culture. For the last 2 decades, Dr. Malik has been representing India, a well-known representing in Japan, a well-known Indian research institute named the Energy and Resources Institute, with the mission to promote India-Japan collaboration in the areas of energy, environment, and sustainable development. Dr. Malik lives in Japan and has been actively involved in several voluntary activities in promoting international exchanges, understanding, and is a member of a number of educational, social, cultural organizations in Japan. As a long-term Indian resident of Japan, Dr. Malik is involved in promoting cultural and people-to-people relations between Japan and India, as is currently serving as the president of Discover India Club in Japan. So today, Dr. Malik is going to share his thoughts about a new era of India-Japan relationship. Over to you, Dr. Malik. Dozo, yoroshiku onegai shimasu.
Thank you very much. Namaskar and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to thank the India-Japan Business Council and its president for giving me this wonderful opportunity to share my thoughts on India-Japan relations as we celebrate the 70th anniversary of India-Japan diplomatic relations in the year 2022. This year also marks 75 years of India-Japan, the independence of India. As a long-term Indian resident of Japan, almost half of my life, it gives me great pleasure to be a part of the efforts being made by the India-Japan Business Council to further strengthen and elevate India-Japan relations to a higher level. My connection with Japan began in 1976, when I came to Japan as United Nations official to work for the United Nations University. While my work with the UN University was of an international character, my long stay in Japan provided me with an opportunity to establish contacts and friendships with the Japanese, both officially and socially, with the Japanese people in the government, academic circles, business, social and cultural organizations in Japan. I retired in 1996, but continued to stay on. You might ask why. First of all, I had received an invitation from a famous university in Japan to teach about global issues and role of United Nations. But then also during my long stay in Japan, I got to know Japan and Japanese people well and became an admirer of the Japanese culture. I appreciate the quietness, the cleanliness, and the kindness of Japanese people, but especially the egalitarian society of Japan. One cannot find another example of a society that has progressed so rapidly, attaining high levels of development and creating a modern society, but without losing its cultural roots. The centuries-old spiritual connections between India and Japan began in the 6th century, when the Buddha's message of compassion reached the shores of Japan via China. In Japan, the old name for ancient India was Tenjiku, the birthplace of Buddhism. The spiritual connection we can also deduce from the fact that Japanese mythology has several gods and goddesses of Indian origin. 3 of the 7 gods of good fortune in Japan are from the Hindu-Buddhist pantheon of India. I'll give the names. Daikokuten, in Sanskrit, Mahakala. Benzaiten, Saraswati. Vishamonten, Vaishravana. Then after the Meiji Restoration in 1868 and opening up of Japan, cultural links between the 2 countries were renewed through contacts and friendship between Japanese and Indian scholars. Swami Vivekananda, a religious leader and a prophet of his age in India, who preached a message of tolerance and universal brotherhood, visited Japan in 1893. He was greatly impressed by the cleanliness, piety, and patriotism of the Japanese people. He came in close contact with the chief priest of Engakuji Temple in Kamakura, and they both traveled to United States. And they attended the first World Parliament of Religions held in Chicago in 1893 and shared the wisdom of the East with other intellectuals and religious leaders. In the earlier years of the 20th century, another famous Indian, Thakur Rabindranath Tagore, made 3 visits to Japan. The Japanese people and culture made a great impression on
Excuse me.
sorry to interrupt.
Malik-san, your voice is muted. Your voice is muted. Yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
good. Sorry, thank you.
Thank you.
It's worth noting that JapanIndia Association in Japan has been in existence, has been operating for more than 100 years, in fact, 119 years. And the first Japanese consulate in India was set up in 1896 in Mumbai, then called Bombay. The first Indian traders came to Yokohama in the 1870s, and trade between Japan and India has continued to flourish. The city of Yokohama has enjoyed a long history of friendly relations with India. and has helped promote people-to-people connections, which are more important, not only for trade, but also for strengthening cultural contacts between the peoples of the two countries. Moving on to Japan-India bilateral relations after the Pacific War. Fortunately, in the case of India, there is no historical baggage, such as that criticizes Japan's relationship with its more immediate neighbors that suffered under the Japanese occupation during the war. In this connection, one must bear in mind the role of Japan in relation to India's fight for independence from Britain by the Indian National Army under the leadership of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. Also, Justice Radha Binod Paul, his courageous dissenting opinion on the International Military Tribunal for the Far East in Tokyo, and also the donation in 1949 by the Indian Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru of a baby elephant to Ueno Zoo in Tokyo for the enjoyment of Japanese children. All these events gave a friendly impression about India to the war-stricken and desolate Japanese after the end of the First World War. In fact, we have a very nice photograph here. In 1957, Prime Minister Nehru, accompanied by Indira Gandhi, came to Japan and fed the baby elephant. Here is a picture. And that he had donated to Ueno Zoo there. Then in 1952, when Japan regained its sovereignty, India and Japan signed a bilateral treaty of peace and friendship. The most remarkable event of the golden period in India-Japan relations was the memorable goodwill visit to India in 1960 by the then Crown Prince Akihito, Princess Michiko of Japan. Now they are Emperor Emeritus and Empress. And it's also worth noting that Emperor Emeritus and Empress again visited India in 2013 and were welcomed very warmly by the government and people of India. Here I show you a picture where you can see the emperor being welcomed 1960 on the right side and 2013 on the left side. That was almost the golden period in the life of India-Japan relations. Japan achieved a remarkable and quick recovery from the devastation of the Pacific War. By the 70s, Japan had become a ranking world economic power. And this generated a sense of pride and self-esteem in the country and led to a growth for the more prominent international role by scholars and Indian leaders. New era of Japan bilateral relations. In recent years, rapidly evolving strategic and global partnership signed between Japan and India has started a new era of bilateral relations, which are marked by mutual goodwill, friendship, and respect. The momentum of these close relations is sustained by annual summits between the prime ministers of the two countries. The strong bilateral ties between Japan and India now also encompass converging political and strategic interests. And I believe that they will not only be beneficial for our two countries, but will also contribute towards long-term regional and global prosperity and stability in the 21st century. The government of India under Prime Minister Modi, has set an ambitious agenda for the socio-economic growth of the country. Many of the priority areas identified by the government, such as infrastructure, manufacturing, smart cities, and others, are areas in which Japan has the expertise and technology. Moreover, there are socio-economic complementarities between India and Japan that can contribute to the promotion of comprehensive bilateral relations between our two countries. For example, the Make in India program would be a perfect example where Japanese technology and the Indian manpower and others used can make things cheaper for the developing countries. There are endless opportunities for business partnerships between the two countries. For example, with India's huge population, rapid industrialization and development, its energy needs are rising rapidly. And this provides an immense potential for technological cooperation between India and Japan, especially in the areas of renewable energy, energy efficiency, climate change. Collaboration in these sectors between Japan and India is being promoted by the Energy and Resources Institute, a globally well-known Indian research institution, which I have the honor to represent in Japan. India, the largest democracy in the world, has accomplished remarkable economic development and is regarded today as an emerging economic power. And Japan has always provided consistent support for the development of the Indian economy and is deeply involved in India's infrastructure development, including metro rail projects. I hope you have been to Delhi metro project, but also in other metropolitan cities, as well as other flagship projects, including Shinkansen. The need for people-to-people contacts. While recently there has been a remarkable increase in business collaboration between the two countries, difficulties arise sometimes, not only because of differences in business styles, but also because of the very low exchange of people and information between the two countries. It has become obvious that there is a need to develop more interpersonal and cultural contacts between the peoples of our two countries, especially among the youth. And in this respect, associations like the India-Japan Business Council in India and the Discover India Club in Japan can play a role in helping to promote a better understanding between the peoples of India and Japan. The Vivekananda Cultural Center at the Embassy of India in Japan has been organizing regularly events and functions with a view to promoting a better understanding about India among the people of Japan. Also, as mentioned earlier, the Japan-India Association has been in existence for more than 100 years and has been making strenuous efforts in promoting exchanges and understanding between the peoples of the two countries. The Discover India Club was established in 2013 with the objective to contribute to building and expanding cultural and people-to-people relations between India and Japan. Short name is DIC, Discover India Club. The DIC has been working in close coordination with the Vivekananda Center at the Embassy of India and the Japan-India Association to achieve this objective. The DIC collects information on the Indian way of life, business, society, and disseminates this among the general public in Japan through its website. and through seminars and cultural and educational functions that are organized periodically on specialized themes and subjects. The DIC also organizes tours to India, which include interaction with the local people in India for the Japanese participants. Annually, the DIC has been organizing in New Delhi, India, a program named Konichiwa Japan, with the collaboration and support of the local India-Japan related associations, to give the people of India a glimpse of Japanese culture. This program was originally done on stage, where Japanese artists were brought from Japan to make presentations of Japanese culture. However, because of the COVID-19 pandemic, this program is nowadays being arranged online, and you're welcome to watch it. It will be held sometime in November, December. And incidentally, I'm an Indian, but I present Japanese culture. I sing Japanese songs, and I did that in New Delhi also when we went. It is believed that enhanced people-to-people contacts between Japan and India would provide a strong foundation for long-term, mutually beneficial bilateral relations between India and Japan. I would like to emphasize that the current international situation, characterized by interdependence and globalization, calls for enhanced engagement between India and Japan. Bilateral relations. The bilateral relations between Japan and India also now encompass converging political and strategic interests. And as I said before, these will be not only benefit for our countries, but will promote global prosperity and stability. In conclusion, I believe that history, geography, economics, demographics, even different strengths and weaknesses on both sides, all converge to make India and Japan natural partners. Both India and Japan have a value system that respects nature and strives for harmony between human beings and the environment. In a world threatened by climate change, it is these values that must be revived and beautiful, and hopefully India and Japan working together can lead the world in this respect. In this connection, the message of Mahatma Gandhi is very important to bear in mind. And I would like to express my thanks again to the India-Japan Business Council for inviting me to participate in this session to mark the 70th anniversary of India-Japan diplomatic relations. However, we just begin now, and I'll be happy to answer any questions so we can take this discussion further. So thank you very much. I'll conclude here for a while. Thank you.
I can't express our gratitude enough, sir, but thank you very much for your wonderful speech and helpful insight, not only about the new era, but the old history where we were also not born. So that was really interesting to know the facts. So I would like to ask if anyone have any questions, you can raise your hands or unmute yourself and ask directly to Dr. Malik.
Any question you can ask on anything, even.
Yes, Malik-san, there is one question from, yes. How do you see the youth in Japan see the opportunities to collaborate with India?
Mm-hmm.
because you have been in Japan for quite some time. I mean, good 45 years. It's a quite long time. So you must have met many Japanese youth through your activities in Japan, through Discover India Club. So how do you see how Japanese youth have seen India as a kind of place that gives them opportunities?
Thank you. Thank you. This is very, very good question because the youth connection is very important. And there are some initiatives being taken to where Japanese students go to India and interact with knowledge students, but do homestay. And homestay is one of the best ways to get to know each other's country. And even when we organized the tour to India, and there also when Japanese families stayed in a homestay, that way they get to know real India. And I believe that, and also when I was teaching at university, Kyoto University, first thing was to make Japanese young people to understand, to improve their English language, because they need to communicate outside in the world. And I suggested that once you improve you get confidence and you can go to any country in the world and so forth. And I found great interest. The 10 years that I taught, many students decided to go abroad to study and so forth. But then, of course, in the case, that was international relations, but also India and Japan youth are now interacting more and more. Unfortunately, this situation of pandemic has upset everything, but things were really moving in the right direction. And I hope that once it improves, there'll be more opportunities for young people to go to India and Indians to come here. It's also very important. And Indian young people, because there are very few Indian students coming to Japan. And I would like to see more of them coming here. So I agree with you that this is very important connection we should promote, I think. And I would also like to add that in not only in terms of people-to-people relations, but I noticed that in ceremonies that are held in Japan and India, they have some basic similarities. And that comes from this old cultural relations, spiritual relations that sustained. We may look different, we may act differently, but there are some things which are very similar in value. And I particularly personally noticed that my friends, who mostly nowadays are my Japanese friends, once we get to know each other, we realize how much sort of similarities are there. But of course, I believe as an international civil servant that not only Japanese and Indians, but the whole world, we must look at the world as a humanity, not a country people, not this country or that country, because the needs of human being are the same. When children are born, what do they need? They need milk, they need to go to school later on, and that is universal everywhere. So I believe that we must look at things from a different perspective. And I hope that Japanese and Indian students will get to know more about each other.
Thank you, Malik-san. I guess Mr. Manohar wants to ask something. Yes, Manohar.
So I am the producer of Mr. Tokyokar movie. This is the Marathi movie on Japan.
Oh, so I see.
Show the culture of the Japanese to the Indian people.
Oh, wonderful.
That will be released next month.
Oh, yeah? Oh, wonderful. Let us know then when you are...
I want to translate in Hindi afterward and after that in Japanese.
I see. Okay, that's wonderful. Because, I haven't talked yet about that, but when I came to Japan, I heard the music of Japan. And
Sakura song?
no, Enka and Mio, Enka. And, that was very similar. And not only that, when I began to understand the meaning of the songs, I realized that they are talking about the same thing. To give you an example, there is a song in India, of course, Chalari Sajni Ab Kya Soche, Kajra Na Reh Jaye Rote Rote. In Japanese, Oyako Zaka is a song, exactly the same wording. You don't even need to translate that. And singing style is also a bit similar. So whenever I talk about the two cultures in Japan, on the stage, I sing for them both songs and tell them how similar they are. You see, that's why. So I have, through music, I have found that not only the message is the same, because that's the old culture, similar culture. But movie must be wonderful, I think. I look forward to seeing that.
This is the first Marathi movie on Japan.
Oh, I see. And this is on Japan, about Japan.
I have shown many tourist places of Tokyo in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Tokyo, Yokohama, and Nikko. That is a movie on tourism.
Oh, I see. Okay. Mm-hmm. That's very, and India being a huge country, it's good to have a Marathi movie so that people, in Maharashtra can also understand that. I noticed that in Japan, and that's why it is so hard to explain what is India, what is an Indian, because there are so many kinds of Indians and so many languages we have, 27 languages. And whereas in Japan, you can tell right away what is Japanese, who is Japanese, and because of the homogeneity.
Arigatou gozaimashita.
Please do.
Thank you. Yes, Malik. Sorry, I guess interrupted you. You were saying something.
Arigatou gozaimashita.
What did you say? Is it Marathi or?
No. Arigatou gozaimashita. So moving to our next question, Mr. Shamant. Question is from Mr. Shamant. What are the new emerging trends in the Indo-Japan relationship that you have been noticing, sir, since 2022 going forward?
Yeah, first of all, I hope that this coronavirus will come to an end, because while it is there, now, for instance, in Japan, after a long time, now we have almost 100,000 cases per day. So it becomes very difficult even to think about or plan something. But I believe that in the future, of course, just not only young people, but because I believe that whereas the Japanese have technology, India has the young people, educated people, who have, and highly educated people, and they, I believe that in that area we must make a more progress, like interns coming to Japan or interns going to India. That way they get to know the industry of the different countries. And there are many, many opportunities, I believe, for young people to benefit from this interaction, I believe.
So connecting to that, we have one more question from our audience from YouTube. That when you mean young Japanese, what most oftenly asked questions to you, and what do you think about that?
Okay. Very often you see, as I said earlier, that language has been a problem, but is now becoming clear. Many young people speak English and easily you can understand. And they are mostly interested about particularly technology. I think that the collaboration in that area, because the tourism they have not been going very much abroad, young people also. And I don't know if they will, in the future, it'll change. But they are interested in collaborating, in finding avenues where, and I think there'll be more and more, because as understanding increases, because there is much complementarity between the two countries. Indians are, thanks to English, are quite, modern. They can move around the world, but Japanese are very shy, and they keep quiet. Indians talk a lot, and Japanese, you can hardly hear any discussion. Even my friends don't discuss very much. So there are pluses and minuses. And I think these pluses and minuses would be, getting to know about them will help improve understanding.
Yes, thank you. Any more questions from anyone?
Abhishek Chaudhary.
So, first of all, thank you very much for sharing all your experiences with us. I have one quick question.
Yes.
And we have seen a lot of joint ventures being developed between Indian and Japanese companies, but going forward, some of them split. Only one or two success stories we have. So, what do you recommend? I mean, what are the things both Japanese and Indian companies should consider while going into a joint venture or those kind of?
You see the trouble with, of course,
so that
India.
It's a successful matchmaking.
Okay, thank you. Talking of tourism, and the population of Japan is decreasing. Young people are not coming forward. Not many are coming, and those who come, then things are hard. Life is very difficult to make tourism at this moment, or even before too. I noticed. I remember in Gujarat, many efforts have been made to improve tourism between Japan and India. So I think that how can you improve that? How can you bring about a change? Is only, first of all, this pandemic has spoiled everything, but young people, we have to do something, activities. And that's why I noticed that Embassy of India, Cultural Center, JapanIndia Association, they try to bring this interest among the Japanese. And by organizing events together, particularly, you see, there are schools here, Indian schools in Japan now, and they are always organizing functions together, even at the embassy when there's a special occasion, the students will come. And in the university, there are students who are learning Hindi. And I have seen dramas done in Hindi by Japanese students from Osaka. So there is an interest. I think it's a question of developing that interest more and more, doing something in that regard, both by Indians and Japanese. I think that I believe that there are opportunities are there.
Thank you very much.
Oh, Kawai-san.
Yes, I'm Kauchi, Iko Kauchi. I have one question about to you. So, yes. As you know, India is a nation of diversity with different language, cultures, and social customs, depending on the region. On the other hand, Japan is a country of single ethnic group. So this is a extremely contrast in that sense. So have you ever had a hard time or felt difficulty communicating with Japanese people during your long life in Japan? Have you experienced that?
Well, I should say that fortunately, I mean, there are sometimes there are all kinds of Japanese also, but fortunately, in my time in Japan, I have had only pleasant affairs, and I interacted more and more with Japanese, particularly because of my interest in music, and all my friends now, I'm doing minyo and I'm doing shigin also, and all my friends are Japanese these days. And I find that there is no trouble at all in dealing with the Japanese that way. There's an understanding, nobody trying to harm you or anything. There's a difference. So I feel very happy here. That's why I decided to stay on here. Sometimes people ask, why are you here? Well, I think it just, at my age, this is the best place to live. It's clean. It's harmonious. People help each other, and so I my own experience, fortunately, Kawashi-san, has been quite good. And you know more about India than I do, I think, Kawashi-san. I read your presentations in the interlinked and with interest. Thank you for people like you who can bring about a more understanding. You see, so more and more people, if they could have interest, and that is required on both sides. I hope I have answered your question, but please feel free.
Very much.
Thank you. So connecting to that, what is your suggestion for people who are getting into joint venture business? People are nowadays trying to get business with Japan, but very few remain constant, or very few get opportunity to continue their business. But might be the possibility of failing number is more. So what is your suggestion on that?
You see, as I said, I think in my talk also, the business styles, there's a difference in that. And also, for instance, in Japan, it takes a long time for a decision to make. But once it is done, because there is meetings and discussions, and finally it is done, is perfect. On the other hand, in India, they like to take quick decisions. And later on, preparations happen later on. That is one of the basic differences, I think. So that means we can learn from that difference, that the Indians could learn from Japanese, how it is done. Uchiawase, everything is so perfect, but it takes time. So I believe that the only way is when people get to know each other, and when there's a real interest in that business, then and without interaction, you can't achieve more in business. So I believe the only way is to try and work out. And I hope that once the interaction increases, they will understand each other. And it depends on the business area also. What is the area in which they are working on? So I believe that there are opportunities, but it'll take time. It won't happen so quickly. With a lot of patience is required. But now I see many associations working in that area. There are a couple of business organizations in Japan who try to bring this understanding between Japanese and Indians business. And I believe that more and more understanding is coming. And in fact, already there is an increase than before.
Thank you. Anyone has any more question?
Is Shaman here again?
Yes, please.
I think one of the key challenges normally probably the Indians face is the language barrier. So I think Japanese language becomes one of the hard barriers for people who have been trying to do business with Japan. So any advices, sir, that you have in terms of how we can probably circumvent these kinds of language hurdles, or probably the cultural hurdles that could be there? so that doing business with Japan becomes easier for the Indian community?
Yes, thank you. This is a very good question because you know that 20 years ago, I think the IT business started growing in Japan, more and more active. And many young people came, Indians came. In fact, near where I live, there's an area, Nishikasai, it's called Indian Village. And more IT people came here. And of course, they work in English. And Japanese, it was very hard, I'm sure, in the beginning for them. But gradually, the Indians learned Japanese. But you can't work in Japanese by learning like that. You need better understanding. So there has to be effort on both sides. Japanese have to understand English. And fortunately, with the diversity in India, we have a common language here, English. And we bring that here. So there's more effort needed, I think, somehow. And business, so once you start business here, it's a big challenge. But I believe that anything you do is a challenge. And once you get to understand better, once there's an understanding, things move very fast. So initially, there's an effort needed, I think. I believe so. I'm not a businessman, so I don't know very much about that. But I believe in any trade or anything in that connection, there has to be understanding between each other. Styles, the approach to events and so forth. But I'm very hopeful that much as compared to before, there's a much more collaboration between Japan and India. And it's on, in fact, on not only on business, but also very strategic interests are there. So it's growing. And also I noticed that recently young Japanese, they speak very good English. It's growing, it's getting better, I think. So I'm hopeful, but to start business here is a challenge.
So Malik, just a connected question on that.
Yes.
So especially I think with Japanese culture, I think building the trust and the relationship, I think understand is one of the most important things. So since you have been having a very long stint in Japan, so what would be your advice on primarily on trust and relationship building, Malik sir?
All right. You know, in Japan, when people do business or even Japanese companies, they meet afterwards. More business is done not at meetings. At the meetings, nobody talks. Nobody says anything. It's only after the meeting when they go for, and it is built into the society, drink together, talk together. That's where the understanding comes along. So there have to be more interaction beside the business to spread understanding of each other. And that, of course, is not easy when you come from another country and things are very expensive here also. And that is also another element that comes into the picture. But once a business starts, there has to be a planned way to come, not just come in and do that. First come and make a survey, study the event places, and get to know the people who are involved in that industry and what they are doing. And then also there has to be an interest on their part also to do business in India. So I believe that both sides need to make an effort to do that.
Thank you, sir.
Namaste, Malik-san. Guma Prefecture, say.
Oh.
This is Tim Hoffman speaking. Please look at my my frame here. I have a photograph up there of Malik-san singing at the Foreign Correspondents Club in Tokyo. Right. This was in the year 2007 in the India-Japan Friendship Year. So he was singing Japanese folk song, and we were accompanying him, our artists from Mumbai and from Benares. great honor. And also, so I'll just jump on here. Let's see here. I'll start video. Also, we were very privileged to work together at Keio University. This was through the very kind introduction of the esteemed Ambassador Aftab Setji. And then his daughter and son-in-law are very esteemed musicians in America. And of course, with his connection with the United Nations, etc., I really feel honored to have the tri-national connection also with Malik-san for these years. So I want to thank you for that. And also just briefly to the India-Japan Business Council, my apologies for not coming through at an earlier opportunity. I'm going to make that up to you for sure. But during that conference, I heard something that also relates very much to Malik-san's presentation. It was the Ambassador Bambawali who mentioned that beyond the unilateral and even bilateral relations that we have in the world, there are the trilateral and multilateral. So, for example, this idea of our three sort of nationalities, you can say, that seem to coincide with the USA, Japan, and India. But then also there's Korea, which has worked with us in Chennai with the Japanese Consulate and the INCO to do a combined performance for the Japanese Friendship Year, Japan-India Friendship Year. So that kind of idea, that's my big question to Malik-ji, is that how to leverage the Japan-India connection, which is developing so nicely, to also bring in the interest and understanding of the rest of the world. Yeah, basically, that's what I wanted to encourage Rabinder-ji and the rest of us also to think beyond. Of course, there's a Quad relationship that's right now a big topic, and of course the East-West Center, where of course the late Dr. R.K. Pochari and Ratan Tata and Manmohan Singh also are alumni. So these cultural and professional associations that have been fostered in the three countries, in this case, and with other countries, I think are a big topic for the future. So Malik-ji, could you comment on that, please?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank
And
you so much.
everybody knows maybe that Tim Hoffman can bring about getting together India and Japan very quickly, because he is a musician, and not only just simple musician. He knows Indian music, he knows Japanese music, and not only just knows, he's a master. And these cultural connections, I think, are also very important. And Tim, I have a great regard for him. He brings artists together from India, because Japanese don't know what Indian music is. And Tim makes a big effort to do that. And also other way around too, because he plays instruments, both Japanese and Indian. And it's been, for me, it's been a great pleasure to know him and also see him interacting on various avenues. And I believe that we have to be open to the other cultures. And there are more and more opportunities, but interest has to come. Are you interested? Then it will move things forward. So you're doing a great job here, I think, in bringing India and Japan together.
That's very generous of you, sir. And there's one thing I wanted to mention. You talked about the themes and the feelings of, for example, ghazal and the shigin and the folk songs in Japan being so much alike. And there's an experience I've had. I studied Indian classical vocal music for 5 years in Lucknow, and I sing classical and semi-classical. So in Tumri, for example, most of the text is from the standpoint of the female. Sajari and, Pia, this kind of thing. So in Japan, you have the onagata in kabuki, which is the male impersonating the female. And I have often wanted to have that experience, but I'm not about to change my countenance like that. However, to have that through poetry and music, it's, again, another very special experience that part of Indian music also, I think should be stressed to bring the languages are so much alike in many ways.
Sure.
And then the expressions, of course, the Japanese are into the visual things. So you have the kabuki, all this, it's very colorful. And in India, the voice, vak and nad is much more important. So expressing that sort of thing through the voice is one of the, again, the two different dimensions, but they're pointing to the same thing.
Sure. And that reminds me that, the triple tragedy that happened in Fukushima, where the tsunami and atomic the power and so forth. The Indian government also sent a group there, and there has been a Namaste India event being held there. And when through music you can reach the people. When I sang, and that province has a music of its own, and when I sang that province's music, the whole audience was singing with me, and that was a very touching moment for me. And I believe that even if I may not have much interaction later on, but they will remember that. So if I go back there and do something, it'll be easier for me, I believe. So we have to be open, I believe, open to cultures, different cultures. And I think that Indians can be open in many ways because they've gone through many phases, and already India itself is diverse, as you say. So many languages are there, so many kinds of people are there. But I believe that if we approach these arts, it helps. It will help eventually the business also. But first, we need to get culture together. I see that.
Sorry, let me make one more comment from the IJBC sessions, and this was from the ambassador, the president and ambassador of India, Mr. Verma, and he used this phrase, a very, very succinct phrase that he said, a soft landing for soft power. So as you're talking about culture, if we want to do business or we want to do professional, or we want to do politics or diplomacy, first we have to find something that's shared by the two of us. So to have, for example, as we both share the music thing, to have something like that to bring the connections through that really appeals to everyone.
Yes, I agree with you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank
I
you very
might
much,
be
Tim.
the wrong person to interrupt you in between, but yeah, we are in our time limit, and I'm extremely sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, no,
Okay.
sorry, I got carried away there.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you. Once a great man has whispered, feeling thankfulness and not expressing it, it is like wrapping a present and not giving it. So today I take the opportunity to put my all gratitude in words on behalf of the IGBC and from the audience. I would like to thank Mr. Rabinder Malik, President of Discover India Club, for taking his prestigious time out and consenting to be a guest speaker. Sir, indeed, your words have inspired the audience, I think. Also, special thanks to Ms. Tomo Khawane-san, for also supporting us and passing us that energy to, bring such a wonderful speakers for the event. Thanks to the Embassy of Japan in India, Consulate of Japan in Mumbai, Embassy of India in Japan for supporting these events. I must not forget to thank our sponsors, Tutor Bharat and Intergest India, our event partners, Shimbe Lab, NanoBees, Rao and MR, Wab & Company, Ichiban Enterprises, Asian Community News, The Lingo, and Keio University. These events can happen only because of your support. Last but not the least, I thank you all the participants for showing their interest in this program. I once again thanks all of you for making this program successful. Minasan o isogashi tokoro o jikan itadaki domo arigatou gozaimashita. So I would say this session can be concluded for today, but however, we are going to come back with our next special lecture series by IJBC and IJL, India-Japan Laboratory. Our first session will offer a rare confluence of observations and assessments by the career diplomats and experts in international relations. The speakers have witnessed the historical developments of bilateral relationship between India and Japan. The speakers are Ambassador Sanjay Kumar Verma, Ambassador of India to Japan, Ambassador Hiroshi Hirabayashi, former Ambassador of India and France, Chairman of JFSS, Professor Tomohiko Taniguchi, Special Advisor to Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's cabinet. Yes, I guess you have heard the right name. We have these extraordinary individuals to our panel sharing this perspective and observation. This lecture will be on 26th February, Saturday, 4 p.m. India time and 7:30 p.m. Japan time. For more details and registrations, please visit our websites www.ijbc.org. So, これで皆さん、今日のセッションはそろそろ終わりになりますが、次のセッションについてお知らせいたします。IJBC と、日インド研究ラボによって特別講義のシリーズが今月の26日から始まります。イベントにご参加いただけるゲストスピーカーがサンジャイ・コマール・バルマ、大使閣下、駐インド大使、ヒロシ・ヒラバヤシ、元駐イ、フランス大使、JFSS 会長、谷口智彦教授、元内閣総理大臣特別顧問、第二次安倍内閣、詳細が IJBC のホームページから多分また見ていただければと思います。皆さんどうもありがとうございました。Till then, stay healthy and stay safe. Thank you.
皆さん、ありがとうございました。皆さん、どうもありがとうございました。
Thank you. ありがとうご
Thank
ざい
you
ま
so
した。
much.
Thank you very much. And let's keep in touch with each other.
Okay, bye.